They smile with open palms, but behind the eyes, a calculation unfolds. You think loyalty is earned and sealed. You believe in bonds, in shared history, in the slow cultivation of trust. But power observes no such sentimental architecture. Power does not ask, who is loyal? It asks, who is useful until they are not? Every day you are being tested, silently, relentlessly, by allies, by subordinates, by friends who speak your name with praise while measuring your weakness. In this world, trust is not a sanctuary. It is a wagra risk placed upon shifting ground. The greater your position, the more quietly they test you, not in grand betrayals, but in hesitation, in the way they pause before carrying out your will. In the moments they look away when your name is spoken in contempt, they watch to see if you notice. They wait to see if you correct it. And you, if you do not see this, you are already losing. There is no neutral ground in power. Every man near you either fortifies your position or erodes it. Those who appear indifferent are not neutral. They are waiting for a sign that you are fading, a sign that the throne is weakening. Do not imagine betrayal as a sudden dagger. It begins as small permissions, as silence where there should be defense, as advice that leads not toward strength, but toward comfort. Those who test you are not merely seeking your fall, they are seeking to confirm that you deserve it. What you call trust, they may call leverage. What you think of as loyalty, they may see as delay waiting for the tide to turn. To rule is to be alone in a room filled with people. They nod, they serve, but their eyes remain fixed not on your face, but on your position. You think you command men. You command only their fear, their hope, their ambition. When those shift, so do they. You're being tested when you're strong, they test your tolerance. When you're weak, they test your usefulness. If you wish to endure, you must become fluent in these quiet betrayals. You must learn to hear the music behind the words, to feel the hesitation behind the smile. In power, friends are useful only as long as they fear and depend on you. Do not dismiss affection outright. It can be a chain as strong as fear, if carefully manipulated. But never trust it alone. Bind them with necessity, and tighten the bond with fear when affection grows too bold. Even those who say they love you may wish for your fall, if only to confirm the secret belief that no one is truly above them. Power humiliates those who lack it, and their hearts will look for an equalizing moment, not out of hatred, but out of hunger. You think the ones closest to you are different, that they see the weight you carry, that they would never betray you, but proximity does not breed loyalty, it breeds temptation. The closer they are, the more they know your habits, your weaknesses, your blind spots. They know where your eyes rest too long, where your mind hesitates, where your will retreats, and they test you not to destroy you, but to measure if you are still worth fearing. A ruler who ceases to be feared does not die quickly. He rots slowly from within, from the unchecked doubts of his circle, from the whispers that go unchallenged, from the advisor who no longer trembles before speaking freely. Control is not something you declare. It is something you assert again and again until the very act of testing you becomes unthinkable. This is the true cost of command, to be studied like a weakness, to be watched like a storm, to be revered only as long as you remind the world why you must be. You will be tested by obedience wrapped in clever counsel, by hesitation dressed as humility, by ambition disguised as concern, and every time you do not respond, you give permission. If you reward comfort over competence, you teach them that softness triumphs. If you permit excuses, you invite indiscipline. If you delay judgment, you give space for rebellion to root. And when the test becomes open, when the betrayal finally steps into light, it will not be from an enemy. It will be from someone who once kissed your cheek and called you friend. That is the geometry of power. The nearer the body, the deeper the blade. But here lies the discipline of leadership. Do not become paranoid, become perceptive. Paranoia weakens judgment. Perception clarifies it. Do not see ghosts, see signals. Do not fear everyone measure them. Know their stakes, their hunger, their alternatives. A man with nowhere to go is loyal. A man with options is a risk. You're being tested because power is never fully held. It is constantly negotiated. You win it once, then you must defend it daily in ways unseen, through instincts honed in silence. The modern state is not governed by laws alone. It is governed by atmospheres, by moods, by silent checks of authority. The leader who fails to detect these undercurrents is not leading. He is floating, awaiting the inevitable correction. Fear, even when it appears cruel, is the truest clarity. It is the recognition that men respond to punishments more swiftly than kindness, and that a ruler who hesitates to strike teaches his subjects to strike first. That loyalty, to be real, must be reinforced by consequence. This may at times require violence. Mercy should never come before fear. When necessary, let your punishments be swift and exemplary, so that others dare not test you again. Let them not only feel the disappearance, but fear the hand that made it so. To lead is to curate your circle with brutal precision. One disloyal mind poisons 10 loyal hearts. The infection spreads not through words, but through doubt. You must rule not just with force, but with presence. The silent awareness that if they push, you will push harder, that if they drift, you will cut the line. This is not about ruling with fear, it is about commanding with finality. Because power abhors ambiguity. If you do not act, someone else will. If you do not define the order, the disorder will define you. So when they test you, and they will do not merely survive, make the test a lesson. Let them learn what happens when ambition overreaches. Let them whisper what you did to the last man who forgot who you are. You're being tested every day, not because you are weak, but because you are visible. Power is gravitite, attracts rivals, doubts, parasites. It is your burden to outlast them. In the end, trust is not given, it is monitored. Loyalty is not assumed, it is engineered. And peace is not offered, it is imposed. You do not lead to be loved. You lead because the alternative is collapse. This is not cynicism, it is realism. The most dangerous thing a ruler can do is forget how quickly love turns to envy, how rapidly support becomes resentment, and how silently a knife can be drawn in the dark. So remember this: you are not paranoid, you are being tested, and they are waiting, always waiting for you to fail the test. There are no off days in power. There are only quieter forms of pressure, softer forms of defiance. Even silence is political. Every moment they are reading you, how you enter a room, how long you hesitate before answering, how swiftly you correct a mistake, how you handle being contradicted. Authority bleeds in the smallest details. You think you are speaking through declarations and speeches, but you are most legible in your reactions. Every delay, every deferral, every unexplained concession, they read it, they log it, and they test again. You are not merely managing a state, or a team, or an empire. You are managing perception. The myth of control must remain intact even when the machinery strains. The illusion, if strong enough, becomes a kind of reality, but it requires constant tending. The moment they sense you no longer believe your own strength, theirs begins to rise. People do not want truth, they want signals. Signals of order, signals of dominance, signals of who may be crossed and who must be feared. You are being tested by the very people who praise you most, not because they hate you, but because they must know the limits. The mind does not rest under unchecked authority. It probes. It resists, sometimes subtly, just to affirm that it is still free. And when it senses that the throne is unwilling to punish, unwilling to purge, unwilling to clarify, resistance evolves into ambition. It begins to believe in the fallibility of the order and in its own right to revise it. And so leadership becomes a war of quiet wars, not of armies, but of gestures, not of battles, but of atmospheres. You rule by anticipation, by interpreting what was not said, by responding before rebellion finds voice. Power to endure must become a discipline of constant awareness, not anxiety awareness, not suspicion but understanding. Know who eats with you, and more importantly, who is watching them eat. Most will not confront you directly. They will wait for you to grow sentimental, for you to believe too deeply in friendship, for you to begin to relax the defenses that made you worthy of power in the first place. The slow erosion of judgment begins with the desire to be liked, the wish to be understood. And that is the beginning of surrender. To lead is not to be known. It is to be seen only as needed and never more than necessary. The more familiar you become, the less reverent they are. Intimacy is the enemy of fear, and in power, fear is not cruelty, it is stability. You cannot allow them to see too much of your hunger, your doubt, your regret. These are truths for you alone. For the world, you must remain the architect of consequence, the one who, when tested, never blinks. They will test your mercy. They will plead weakness to exploit compassion. They will offer apologies not to express guilt, but to confirm your limits. Every pardon you give weakens the deterrent for the next defiance. And so the law of leadership must be this: mercy may be given, but only after fear has been fully established. If mercy precedes fear, it is seen as softness. If it follows fear, it is seen as wisdom. Do not mistake applause for loyalty. Do not mistake silence for submission. The deepest betrayals are rehearsed in silence. The most dangerous enemy is the one who does not speak until he strikes. Watch not what they say, but what they avoid saying, what truths they skip, what flattery they offer too quickly. Praise can be poison, especially when it masks intent. To endure in command, you must learn to punish without hesitation and reward without emotional attachment. Sentiment is the prelude to disorder. A ruler who favors the familiar over the competent, the loyal over the necessary, will find himself surrounded by weakness that sings his praises while undermining his rule. Even love, if it exists at all in power, is conditional. They love you when you give them victory, when your presence expands their opportunity. But the moment you become a liability, even affection will decay into blame. They will not admit this openly. They may not admit it to themselves, but it is there, under the surface, waiting. You are being tested by the future. Every decision you delay sends a message that the present is unsure. Every moment of indecision is a window in which others begin to imagine that they too could lead. The dream of replacing you does not come from your failure. It comes from your hesitation. If you wish to remain, you must kill that dream early, in silence, in calculation, in the surgical removal of those who see you as a bridge to their own ambition. This is not cruelty, it is order, for if you do not remove them, they will remove you. You think you have time. That loyalty buys years, but power is impatient. The moment they sense you can no longer secure their future, they begin building new ones without you. Power is not passed, it is taken. Even your heir waits with sharpened patience. And if you misread the signals, if you believe too much in the myth of succession, you will find yourself dethroned not by enemies, but by those you raised with your own hands. Every relationship in power is transactional. The deeper the bond, the more dangerous the transaction. Those who believe they are owed begin to demand. Those who feel they made you believe they own you. And when you deny them what they believe is theirs, they do not return to neutrality. They revolt. So what is the answer? Withdraw from affection. Step back from friendship. Command not from intimacy, but from presence. Let them feel your influence more than they see your face. Let your absence be felt more than your words. Distance is not coldness, it is insulation. It is protection against the inevitable corrosion that closeness brings. Be kind if useful. Be generous when strategic, but never be dependent on their approval. The moment they sense you need it, they will make you beg for it. This is the nature of testing. It is not open rebellion. It is the slow theater of loyalty decaying under the weight of opportunity. You must be its counterweight. Not through force alone, but through discipline, through the clarity of consequence, through the ruthless removal of uncertainty. Fear is not the end of leadership. It is the beginning of order. It is the signal that there are limits, that power has a spine, that the throne does not negotiate. They are watching, every day, weighing, calculating, waiting to see if you are still the one who cannot be challenged, and if the answer is ever no, they will not ask again. You are being tested, and you always will be, because power never sleeps, and neither can you. You cannot retreat into ideals. Ideals do not rule. They decorate speeches. They hang on the walls of institutions that tremble when pressure mounts. The ruler who clings to idealism when reality sharpens its knives will not be remembered for his virtue, only for his failure. The world does not reward goodness. It rewards structure, and structure survives only when built with a sober hand. To govern is not to inspire, it is to contain, to shape the forces that, left unchecked, devour the very society they claim to serve. Chaos does not need an invitation. It needs only a pause, a single moment when the figure at the top begins to question himself more than the world does. That is when the tests become bold. That is when they stop pretending to obey. You cannot allow yourself to be surprised. Surprise is the tax you pay for inattentiveness. Every betrayal that strikes from behind once began with a sign you chose not to read. They do not mask their intentions as cleverly as you think. They test the limits with sarcasm, with backhanded compliments, with shifts in body language, with subtle resistance dressed in humor. These are not quirks, they are warning shots. When you ignore these signs, you tell the room that the sovereign has gone blind. There is a gravity to authority. When it weakens, the orbit of others begins to wobble. What held close now begins to drift, and the farther they drift, the more they seek a new center of gravity. Power is not lost in grand. Battlesit is lost in inches, in the slow erosion of command. In your failure to notice that the men who once stood when you entered now merely glance up. Do not mistake comfort for security. Comfort is the prelude to decay. The moment you feel most secure is often the moment they feel you've grown tired. That is when they test not your force, but your will. They test to see if the throne still breathes, or if it merely sits there unmanned, ornamental, waiting for the next strong hand. You are being tested not just by individuals, but by time. Time does not sympathize. It waits for no man's legacy. It grinds down myths, strips titles of their meaning, reveals every leader as temporary. You cannot fight time, but you can bend it. You bend it by staying relevant, by evolving faster than the challenges that come for you. The moment you stop adapting, you begin to fossilize. And once fossilized, even your most loyal will begin to look elsewhere, not out of malice, but out of necessity, because people follow power, not memory. And when they feel your relevance fading, they will rewrite your story while you are still alive. You are not the exception. No ruler is, no structure is eternal, but you can stretch the lifespan of your reign by mastering the cadence of testing, by treating every small rebellion as a rehearsal for a greater one, by answering doubt with clarity, not anger, not noise, clarity, the clarity that says, I see you and I will act. This is what they respect, not speeches, not ideals, not the poetry of your vision. They respect the simple, cold demonstration that consequences still follow disobedience. You must not become dramatic. Drama is for the weak. Precision is for the ruler. Do not lash out. Do not overreact. Do not shout. Remove, replace, reposition, without sound, without ceremony. Let absence speak louder than your voice ever could. The true test is not whether you can command in crisis. It is whether you can maintain dominance in peace. Crisis clarifies. It reveals, but peace lulls. It breeds decay. If you can rule through peace without being softened by it, you have mastered the discipline of power. But that requires killing the part of yourself that wants to be understood, that longs for affection, that believes loyalty can be unconditional. It never is. Every loyalty is a wager, a calculation, a performance held up by fear, benefit, and mutual interest. And when those vanish, so does the allegiance. You must look into the eyes of those around you and ask not, do they love me? But what do they stand to gain by standing with me? And if the answer is unclear, you must make it clear, either by raising their stake in your rule or by eliminating their ability to choose otherwise. You are not building a community, you are maintaining a fortress. Even within there are enemies, and many wear your symbol, speak your language, claim your vision. But the true test is not what they say in meetings. It is what they whisper when you leave. It is how they behave when your decision contradicts their ambition. Watch closely in those moments. That is when the mask slips. You are not paranoid. You are present. You are not ruthless. You are responsible. The throne is not protected by love. It is protected by consequence. And the longer you delay its enforcement, the more they believe it no longer exists. You are being tested every day by those who owe you everything, by those who once feared you, by those who believe the flame of your reign is flickering just enough to permit a new wind. And your answer must be constant, unspoken, and absolute. The fire still burns. They will not say it out loud. They will not confess their growing doubt. But you will see it in how they wait longer to act on your orders, in how they consult others before they move, in how your words, once final, now seem like the beginning of negotiation. It starts with nuance, with questions disguised as advice, with advice that subtly shifts accountability away from them and authority away from you. The erosion is never loud, it is polite. It is procedural, it is almost imperceptible until it is irreversible. And so, you must master the art of seeing through civility, through etiquette, through tradition. These are the veils under which real power moves. The test is rarely direct, it is ceremonial. The invitation you were not given, the meeting held without your knowledge, the initiative launched with your name, but not your will. They claim alignment, but operate with autonomy. And that is the first stage of usurpation, to act as though your authority is assumed, not required. You cannot afford the luxury of being flattered. Praise is a transaction. It is currency in the marketplace of influence. Those who flatter you want something. Those who do not may already have it. Beware the ones who agree too easily, who speak too smoothly. There is a type of obedience that is not loyal, it is strategic. It stays close only to watch for the crack in your armor, and when it sees it, it multiplies. So test them first, before they test you. Give them small commands with high stakes. Watch how they respond under pressure. Watch who they consult when confused, who they look to when you're not in the room. These are your real rivals, not the loud ones, the ones who think of you only in terms of obstacles and opportunities. The ones who measure your moves not with awe, but with calculation. Power has no friends, only allies, only competitors in temporary alignment. They are with you as long as your direction serves theirs. When it does not, they recalibrate. They will not announce it. They will not even admit it to themselves. But the shift begins. A little more independence, a little less deference. The careful reshaping of narratives until your role seems accidental, even replaceable. If you want to rule, you must abandon the fantasy of permanence. Everything is conditional, everything is borrowed. The throne is rented from the fears and hopes of others. And the rent must be paid constantly with strength, with clarity, with results. You cannot lead if you are distracted by being liked. You cannot survive if you mistake consensus for control. Control is not something you gain by asking, it is something you assert by being undeniable. Not through volume, through presence, through the sense that when you act, reality adjusts, that when you speak, the air changes. They are always watching for signs of weakness, not because they are malicious, but because the political animal is designed to ascend, and ascent is only possible when the current peak begins to slip. They are evolution wrapped in suits and strategy. If you falter, they advance. That is not evil. That is nature. So, you must become the environment they cannot breathe without. Your survival depends not on making them love you, but on making them need you. If they can imagine winning without you, they already are. You must structure the system so tightly that your absence becomes a threat to their own stability. That is loyalty built on necessity, not sentiment. And that is the only loyalty that lasts. You are being tested when they speak in vague terms, when they defer responsibility back onto you with polished words, when they claim unity while negotiating side deals. These are not harmless gestures. They are strategic fog. They are ways of hiding ambition while pretending to serve it. And if you let it pass, they learn the system tolerates duplicity. That is how decline begins. Do not fear being feared. Fear is not hatred. It is respect for consequences. It is the awareness that defiance has a cost. When they no longer fear you, they do not become free. They become opportunistic. They begin to speak more freely, not because they have grown bold, but because you have grown permissive. And that is a sin in power. To permit what should have been punished, to tolerate what should have been corrected. Mercy has a narrow window. If granted too late, it is seen as retreat. If given too freely, it is interpreted as weakness. You must learn when to forgive for effect and when to erase for survival. Your presence must remain, felt even in your silence. Your influence must linger in every corridor. When they make decisions, they must still pause and wonder, what will he say? What will he do? Not because you are cruel, but because you are consequential. If your shadow no longer guides the room, someone else's will. The test is not over when the crisis passes. The real test begins when things go well. That is when people start to imagine alternatives, when they forget how precarious the system truly is. Comfort breeds revisionism. They forget why you were necessary, and they begin to ask if someone softer, friendlier, more inclusive could do the job. This is when you remind them, not with speeches, with action. You remove the comfortable. You promote the disciplined. You realign the incentives so that deviation carries risk and obedience carries reward. You clarify the architecture again, not with words, but with consequences. This is how you lead without speaking, how you rule without needing to shout. They feel your values not as philosophy, but as climate, as the invisible pressure that shapes their behavior. You are not tested once. You are tested continuously, each hour, each silence, each glance across the table. And the only acceptable result is consistency. Every time they push, they must feel the wall. Every time they drift, they must be snapped back into place, not violently, naturally, as if it were the gravity of your presence that corrected them. This is not tyranny. It is stewardship of power. It is the responsibility to maintain what others depend on even if they resent it, especially when they resent it. Because resentment is not the enemy. A ruler who is not resented is not ruling. He is managing impressions. True leadership stirs discomfort because it refuses to flatter illusions. And illusions are what most people crave. Let them crave. Let them hope. Let them fantasize about a softer future. But never allow them to forget the truth. The order they enjoy exists because you enforce it. The stability they mistake for nature is your design. The peace they grow bored of was bought by your discipline. And if they test it, even once too often, they must feel what it means when the architecture withdraws. So this is the shape of it. Power is not held in the hand, it is held in the perception of the hand. It is not what you do that secures your rule, but what they believe you are capable of doing. The test is never about your strength, it is about their belief in your strength. And once that belief fades, it does not return. You do not regain awe. You do not rebuild fear. You are no longer the sovereign, you are the memory of one. That is why you must never hesitate, never explain, never allow sentiment to interrupt necessity. The moment you ask for trust, you confess uncertainty. The moment you beg for loyalty, you signal weakness. And the world does not respond with mercy, it responds with movement. Movement away from you, movement toward whatever comes next. If you wish to remain, you must become the still point in a turning world, the one who does not blink, the one who does not flinch, the one who does not seek comfort in times that demand clarity. They will call you many names. They will project their cowardice onto your firmness. They will whisper that you are cold, calculating, ruthless. Let them. Let the softness of the age recoil from the weight of discipline. Let them imagine that they could do better, lead better, rule with more humanity. Let them believe that, until the moment comes when someone must decide, when someone must bear the blame, when someone must protect the structure at all costs. Then they will look for you, because in the end, they do not want kindness. They want certainty. They want to know that when everything else falls apart, someone remains unshaken, that someone will not yield to pressure, to panic, to the childish desires of a people who do not know what it means to lead. You are being tested because the world tests what it fears. You are being tested because they remember somewhere, even if faintly, that you are the one who decided when others could not, that you are the one who acted when others waited, that you are the one who, when pushed back harder. So let them test, and when they do, show them not with noise, not with spectacle, but with silence, with presence, with results that the throne is not empty, that you are still here, still watching, still unbroken.